The glorification of violence, even down to the fact someone goes, oh, pop, 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 pop. And I'm thinking, that looks cool, doesn't it? What does that represent? It represents gunshot, firing a firearm into the air. And you know what? I don't get used to that. Dancehall has had its moments and there have been quite a few casualties along the way. Many people have died. And at that particular time, they were not close, or in fact, they never were close. And one form of resolution is to get people together, to get them to talk, to get them to shake hands. This rubbish about, Commissioner's not doing well. There was over 1,000 murders this year, or what did Mark Shields do? It's rubbish. It's about a collective effort in terms of education, economics, employment. Yeah, enforcement. That's one of the E's, but all of those E's have to work together.
But I could not have you here and not ask about Sir Pete. You've listened to some of his videos, I assume.
Rubbish.
Wow.
It's rubbish. I've heard him, yeah. I've seen
it. What about it is rubbish?
Well, a lot of it is rubbish.
Yo, people, welcome back to the Fix It's a Boy and are here with Ari, and we have Scotland Yard's finest
there
in the building. Before we get to that, I say big up to our sponsors. Itopia Life Herbal Store Cannabis and Culture combined for a one-of-a-kind experience. You can visit them at 10A West Kings House Road, just across from the Canadian Embassy. Also, you can follow them on Instagram at Itopia Life or visit their webpage at itopialife.com for more information. Remember, so them have them FIFA Sundays as well. Them on forward out every Sunday. First prize, second prize. Them offer cushion, all these things, yeah? Yeah, man. Big up. Also, I say, big up Circular JA for the very best in electronics, repairs, unlocking, you name it. They're located at 15 Eastwood Park Road, Kingston, Jamaica. That's Pristine Plaza across from the bus park. Shout out to Circular JA. Make sure you check out all them new MacBook deals. Them have the new iPhone 16 out there as well. Shout out. As I said, people have Scotland Yard's finest in the building.
Mr. Mark Shields.
Mr. Mark Shields.
My crime sprinting around like donkey cart wheels.
Bless up. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, when you first hear these, like the lyrics, like you first being mentioned in dancehall lyrics, like what was your first reaction to it?
I laughed, I guess, because you can work at Scotland Yard for 30 years. They don't write songs about you. But you come to Jamaica and they do. So you think, well, you must be making a mark.
Yeah.
No pun intended.
That's true, right? Well,
yeah, indeed. Yeah, that was the pun. It was.
Because it's so funny to me because, that's what I was actually singing, not this Idonia song, but Mark...
The Kartel.
The Kartel is Mr. Mark Shields run back at Scotland, yeah. Like that was the line that stand out to me. Mm-hmm. So it's just like even funny that we were talking that you were instrumental in bringing Vybz Kartel and Mavado. You call him David. That was like weird.
Yeah, it's a bit weird, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Together because during the time like it was heights at Gaza and Gully war and you were the deputy commissioner at that time, right?
Yeah.
Right.
It was one of the many conflicts that was going on at the time. And as you know, dancehall has had its moments and there have been quite a few casualties along the way. Many people have died. And at that particular time, they were not close, or in fact, they never were close. And one form of resolution is to get people together, to get them to talk, to get them to shake hands. So I managed to speak to both of them through their agents. And eventually we ended up at the Pegasus Hotel and we sat down together and we had a chat. It was on media as well. But the idea was to say to the people out there, listen, these two, they might have different styles. They might come from different parts of Kingston, wherever. But at the end of the day, it's music.
Right.
It's not real, it's music.
Yeah. And
the glorification of violence and all that goes with that is a bad thing. Yes, that's how they sing. That's what they sing about. They sing about the lives where they came from. But certainly in terms of Mavado, he's moved on. Yeah. He's a family man. Mm-hmm. He's got his kids. He lives a completely different life. I stay in touch with him. I see him from time to time when I'm in Miami, and we'll have a chat. And that's good. That's how it should be. Unfortunately, the other guy didn't turn out quite so well.
No, he is.
But that's another story.
He is. He's reformed now.
He's reformed.
No comment. So we'll move on.
Has he talked, at least, do you have conversations with him about his current situation? Because apparently there's a warrant out for his
For
arrest.
who?
Mavado.
Yeah, I don't actually think that really exists personally. You took the one from Constant Spring.
Yeah.
I do not believe that is anything real because I understand his attorneys have made inquiries, and there does not appear to be any substance to that at all. That's my view and my opinion, but I'm not in the police. They may know something different, but that's my information.
Okay.
So I'm certainly not speaking on behalf of the police, but I've spoken to him. I've spoken to others who I do know. And this is the thing, whether it's Mavado, whether it's Jashi or whoever, there are tendencies from some groups to try to tie them into things that they are not actually involved in. And I'm not being naive because I know that some of these guys, some of them have been bad and they end up either in prison, as we know, doing life for murder. And I don't mean just that guy, but, some of the others.
Yeah.
One that my wife famously interviewed at one point in the past, Ninja Man. Exactly.
Yeah.
Emily, and all of that. So, they're not all perfect. They're not angels. So I'm not saying that. But equally, I sometimes think that it can be factions of police, factions of communities that may be jealous and have a bad mind, and they will go after these people. They see the success, they see what they're doing, and they try to bring them down.
Wow.
And unfortunately, that's how it is.
The concept of bad mind, was that introduced to you while being here in Jamaica?
I've been here for 20 years, so I think I know what bad mind is.
I was just wondering if that is something that you experienced.
I've had plenty of bad mind.
Especially for your wife. I can imagine that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now, just circling back to Mavado Kartel, how difficult was that to
bring them together?
Bring them together and
It took
forge that peace, if you will.
from memory, it was a long time ago, but it didn't take that long. It was a question of knowing the right people. And in fact, initially, Mavado, through his agent, they need to get him a visa for the US. And there are all sorts of challenges around that. And I think that I helped to a degree with that because there was this so-called intelligence about him. But when I looked at it, there was nothing substantial. And again, it comes back to, what people say, but what's the substance? Where is the real evidence to prevent people maybe from traveling? Because if you're British, it's great. You can go to the United States.
Yeah.
But for a Jamaican, it's not so easy.
Nope.
And if you go to the embassy every single day, there could be 150 people trying to get an application for a visa. Most of them will get turned down. Yeah. And incidentally, Jashi got his visa a few weeks ago.
Yes.
And went up to Spragga Benz's premiere a couple of weeks. Was it last week on Sunday?
Yeah.
So things work out well for people, despite some of the things that are said. That the reality is often quite different.
Right.
With that being said, and this is an age-old discussion that we've had here ad nauseum, but do you feel like there's any influence whatsoever that dancehall has on crime in Jamaica?
I think for the naive, absolutely 100% yes. In that if you are completely exposed to driving to work or to school on a bus every day where the driver is blaring out music that's basically obscene or completely riven with violence and gun culture and gang, and you get that every single day, and then you go back into a community where there is a gang culture, yes, of course, it must reinforce it. But on the other hand, we would say that, culturally, that dancehall represents what's happening within those communities because the people who both create the songs and sing the songs come from those communities. So it's a reflection of who they have been or who they actually are.
Right.
But no, I absolutely hate the glorification of violence, even down to the fact someone goes, oh, bop, 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 bop. And I'm thinking, that looks cool, doesn't it? What does that represent? It represents gunshot, firing a firearm into the air. And you know what? I don't get used to that. I can't get used to that.
Really?
People might think, oh, that's fun, but I don't like it. I don't like it.
You're not Jamaican,
No,
Mr.
I'm not
Shields.
Jamaican enough. It's 20 years. But all I'm saying is there are some things that even after 20 years, I just don't get. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
I get most of it. I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm with you guys 20 years on.
Yeah.
Why if you
Okay,
ever
you
do that
said
round
bad
yet? Why if you ever do that round yet?
No, it's not a thing I do.
So wait, how do you if you're I guess Jamaican and British culture I guess is very different, but if you enjoy music or if you resonate with a song, how is your reaction to it? Are you visible? Do you have a visible reaction, or is it just
Absolutely. Well, I think what a lot of people don't know about. I'm an absolute music lover. So if there's a question where they say, well, what's your favorite band, or, you know, what's your favorite album ever, or this, I cannot tell you. I have no clue, because you'll literally hear me listening to Sprague one day, and the next day I could be listening to Mozart. It depends on my mood. Or there could be, I don't know, anything being played in my house. And if you went on and looked at my playlists, they're all completely different and broken down into different parts of my life. And so music in Jamaica has always been part of my life in terms of the Mali side of it, from when I was in the United Kingdom, to come here and to get to know other aspects of, obviously, the other Malis, and all the other music I've seen in terms of reggae, dancehall, and there are some I like and some I don't like. The thing I don't like, and I know that the Trinis would hate me saying this, I don't like all that jumping up and down carnival music. It does nothing for me. I'm sorry. I don't get it.
We have a shared
hands in the air, hands in the air.
dislike, yeah.
What's all this about? I don't get it.
You know, like soca.
Let me tell you, it's good
Soca
in
is not my
doses.
thing.
It's good in doses, but to hear it over and over and over again.
Well, yeah,
as a
after
soca
6
event,
Guinnesses, maybe.
Yes.
And a party, but
it makes it more,
Yeah.
acceptable for me too, yeah.
But I was just saying, like, how because you're saying it like this, but like how you show your approval of a song then?
what do you mean? Do I jump up and down?
Well,
Do I dance? I
yeah,
do.
like-
But apparently, some would say I dance appallingly. I would disagree with that, but some would say I don't dance very well. It's a bit. I put one other thing together with that, because in my office, which is all Jamaican, and if I try and speak patois in my office, they say, "Stop, Mr. Shields, please, just stop." So my dancing and my patois, I've got the same reaction
Cringe.
from Jamaicans.
Like,
Cringe,
no.
exactly. That's a good word.
no,
Cringe.
don't do it.
Nah, tell you a lie, I experience that when they say bad mind, I'm like, oh.
Yes, that was like, what?
Yeah,
Oh, bad mind.
Bad
Like
mind.
that. I'm like, definitely you learn that when you come here.
Yeah.
That was
No,
it.
you do. You do.
Bad
You learn.
mind.
You
Yeah,
learn a
yeah,
lot.
yeah.
You don't stay for 20 years and not learn anything.
Yeah, but
But it doesn't mean to say if you went to England for 20 years, you wouldn't accept everything. And you still, in my view, if you're from Jamaica, you're from Kingston, Montego Bay, or wherever, and you go and live in England, and I know many Jamaicans in England, I've got relatives who are Jamaican who live in England, they're still Jamaican.
Yeah.
And there are things they don't like about England, even though they've been there for 20 years, because basically they're still in their heart and in their head, they're Jamaicans.
Yeah.
And they don't lose that culture. They don't lose their accents or anything.
No, them
And they don't
very
lose their
much it.
culture.
I'm curious to know, what was the biggest culture shock you experienced when you first got here?
That's a really interesting question. I think there's a sort of a level of disorganization here and indiscipline at times that I find difficult to deal with still. And I'll give you an example. A friend of mine spoke to me yesterday about coming in on a British Airways flight from Gatwick to Kingston. And this is going to sound dreadful, but I'm here to tell you the truth as a seasoned traveller for 20 years back and forth. When you get called for the flight and you're in Gatwick for the BA 2263 and they say group 1 first, then group 2, there is a mass rush for the door. That's just how it is. It's chaos. It's chaos to a degree. Whereas if you go to Miami, where there is a mixture of Jamaicans and other cultures and other people, it tends to be more orderly. Now, like it or not, I'm here to tell you how I really feel. There is an aspect here of disorganization, of not wanting to do things in that particular way, which is just a fact. But equally, I'm not saying that the UK is perfect, because there are many things about UK culture that are equally, in my view, that I don't like. There are things I don't like about that. So please don't think I'm picking on it.
Yeah.
And I know that these shows have a habit of making a clip that, Mark Shields said.
It's not.
It's not we know, it would be TikTok.
It will be. It'll be on TikTok that I said that. So, being transparent and being honest sometimes can work against you. So let's hope they put that bit into the TikTok as well.
Believe us, we know that. We can relate.
Yeah. But that's the sort of thing that you get. And then sort of moving, we've not even talked about the police yet, but I'll give you another example. There's a degree here of impatience, of unruliness on the roads that I find astounding. Everybody is in such a hurry. Everybody wants to jump a red light. Why do they want to do that? Kingston, for example, is full of traffic. If you jump the red light, you might gain 30 seconds if you're absolutely lucky. But you sit there on the green light and then 5 cars will go through the red light before you actually go. You cannot just move out because that's how it is.
Yeah.
You would not do that in Miami. You would not do that in London. You would not do that in Toronto. Why do you do it when you're in Jamaica? Because the Jamaicans who go away to those places, they
And
don't jump the light.
They're very orderly, right? When
Exactly.
the goat is a culture here. Yeah.
And there's something about that which I still don't get that. But and I think that can be it's a root thing of
Maybe
disorder.
not too cut it, but maybe it's the hustle and bustle of the city, because maybe people would have a similar thing to say about New York, about how, New York people are, and, it seems like impatience and,
I agree, but there's a different, because you can flip it and say Jamaican people, I think, are far more friendly than New Yorkers. Wherever you go in Jamaica, people are absolutely friendly. One of the reasons I stay here is the fact that people's general persona is really good. People are friendly, they're polite. You hear about tourists getting lost in a particular area that we would say is a bad area. They don't get robbed, and they don't get the wheels of their car stolen. They just say, boy, you shouldn't be down here, man. You should have turned around and gone back that way.
Yeah.
That's the sort of attitude. But there are aspects here that are strange. Why is it, for example, wherever you go, you find a man peeing up against the side of a wall? If you did that anywhere else, they would lock you up.
They don't do that in England?
No,
No.
not to the degree that they do here, no.
Yeah, because I'm like, when them get rowdy, when them win the Champions League or World Cup
That's
or
different.
something. Yeah.
But as a matter of course here, let's stop the car, go up to the wall or a tree, have a pee. And that's just to be the nature here.
I've never seen in England. I've been there about 3-4
Have you ever
times.
seen that?
A wall that says "Don't piss here." And you see several. You just drive around and see several walls
Exactly.
with that word.
That's for real, for real.
But they still do it. But
Yeah.
maybe this is a discretion doing it.
Sometimes you just gotta go.
Yeah,
you
indeed,
gotta go.
indeed.
And I find that too, because you see that, because Nara was saying the Kingston, but in embassy they line up, so they
They
pick
do.
and
They
choose
do, of
where they
course.
want to behave orderly.
Exactly.
Have you ever been into a KFC yet?
Have I been to a KFC?
Right.
Well, no, maybe
time-
you don't eat KFC.
You
you
know,
don't know.
yeah.
Is the Pope Catholic?
Yes, right. So like even that too, like that's like a microcosm of Jamaican culture, right? Like you've
Yeah.
experienced the best and worst of us there.
Yeah, but I think generally speaking that with KFC, Burger King, they tend to line up more than they do for a plane sometimes for some reason. I think, it's not that bad in KFC, or at least not the ones I've been into. I mean, it's a Mountain View, Manor Park. I've not been into the one in Montego Bay, but I've been to a few of them. Okay. And I don't find it that disconcerting.
Okay.
And of course, with drive-by, you can't get around anyway. You have to stay in a line.
We've talked about, the difference in culture with Jamaica, but why in England, like you've been back and forth, like is there things that you miss about England?
It sounds crude, but I do miss fish and chips because
Never had
it's
it.
not something that you would have every week or every day, but it's a bit like KFC is to Jamaicans. Fish and chips can be fantastic, particularly when you're by the seaside for some reason. It just tastes so good. So I miss fish and chips. I miss going to the pub and drinking a pint. It's very difficult to get a pint of good Guinness here. I drink bottled Guinness, but to get a good draft Guinness, there's only about one place that you can get it in Kingston, and it is seriously expensive.
Clubhouse Brewery.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
It's a good Guinness, but you need a mortgage to get drunk.
The man says they need a
It's quite expensive. I
Yes,
know. Yes,
it is quite expensive.
It is.
Yeah, they're the sort of the basic things I miss. And I guess when I go home, in fact, when I go to the US, things are just a bit calmer. It's nice to have a break from it. I love living here. I love the people here, but it's nice to go away sometimes and just to chill a bit and then come back. And I find going home, going into the English countryside, I love it. I love going for long walks in England. I love going back to my hometown because I was born in London and just hanging out there, going to pubs, restaurants, whatever it happens to be, just even going to an art gallery or something now and again and doing some of the things that I didn't even do when I was a cop in London. I never got time to do it, but now I can go back and appreciate from a different perspective some of those things. But there are things, it's changed without getting too much into politics, but The UK has changed since 2016. That was a monumental year because it's when the United Kingdom voted by a small margin to leave the European Union. And it was the most divisive thing that could have happened. It brought out the worst in people. It brought out racism and all sorts of other nastiness. And that wound is still gaping. It's wide open. And I don't miss home as I did. You know, if you'd asked me back in pre-2016, you'd said, Mark, what do you think in the long term? I'd probably say to you, I'd probably end up going home, going back to England. I don't really want to go back now. It's such a divisive society. And it's the same thing if you look at the fact we're on the verge of an election in America, and you've got Trump and MAGA, and then you've got Harris on the other side, and America is so divided. It's going to come down to literally, it could be thousands of votes after all those millions of people have voted. Societies are so divided. I don't get that sense here. You know, like it or not, so I'm not saying there's a preference. Andrew Holness has been Prime Minister for quite a few years. The UK's had about 7 prime ministers in the same time, and God knows how many other ministers. I find there are always challenges, we have political stability here. We have relative fiscal responsibility here, better than it ever has been in the last 20 years. Things for Jamaica are getting better, but in the UK, they are really bad.
Wow.
It's only recently we've had a change in government. So we've gone through 14 years of the Conservatives. Labour got on the 4th of July. And I'm hoping that things will get better, that the healing will come. Because the Tories were very divisive. So things have not been great.
And it's funny that you said that because you came in under the PNP's administration, right? And then
Peter Phillips brought me here.
Peter Phillips brought you in. I remember that.
Dr. Peter Phillips.
Dr. Peter Phillips.
All right, we're taking a break out of this podcast to big up our sponsor, Ding.
What happened, Javi?
I want to call my husband, but I don't have any credit.
You don't have any credit? I can ding you some credit.
Really? What's Ding?
I'm glad you asked. Ding is a global mobile top-up app used by Jamaicans abroad who can send phone credit to any Digicel or Flow phone in Jamaica from anywhere in the world. With Ding, the diaspora can stay connected with home by sending mobile top-ups safely and securely in just 3 seconds. And here's the best thing. It's quick and easy to use, and the person getting their phone topped up can avoid the dangers and inconvenience of collecting cash from stores. If I put a little cherry on top, Ding has given us a 75% off discount for you guys to try it out. So if you're first time sending a yard from abroad, enter the promo discount code FIX75 at checkout. That's FIX75 to save 75% while making someone's day from afar. Make sure to try this deal out as it won't last long. So if you're in Jamaica and you've got a Digicel or a Flow phone, let a family member or friend living abroad know about this offer. Tell them to use the promo code FIX75 today to send you some credit at a discount. Remember, with Ding, a little goes a long way.
Babe, I got the credit.
You've experienced, I guess, like two very different governments, and
Absolutely.
It's like but it's funny that you said that we're getting better politically, like in terms of stability,
it's the stability
and fiscal.
And fiscal responsibility. There's no doubt about that at all. And I'm not giving you a political argument, so don't call me a Labourite or a comrade because I'm one nor the other.
We don't have to. The comment section will.
But I'm sure they will. This is it. It comes back to TikTok. Whatever you say. So you can either have a bland interview and say nothing of interest and hope that TikTok finds you boring, or they're going to pick up, he's a Labourite, he hates Jamaicans because they do this. I can just see it. Why did I come here?
Let's not worry about that. Because that actually is a question, because I know there was a rumor that your wife had to dispel that you were not in the running to be National Security Minister, or you wanted to be in the Senate or anything like that.
So rubbish.
But it's like, even how do you manage to stay away from politics, given that it's politics that brought you here?
I think that's easy because politics here doesn't want me. And I'm not saying that with any negative tone to it at all. But since I left the Jamaica Constabulary Force, I've never been asked to be a consultant for anything. I've never been approached by either the PNP or the JLP to do anything at all. which suits me because I've got my own business. I've had a security company since 2009, Shields Crime and Security, plug.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. Yeah.
We've got about 100 and something guards now, but we focus really on technology, and I love doing that. And I think that if I even considered venturing into politics, it would have an adverse effect upon it. So I'm interested in politics. I studied politics. I went to university for politics. So I would always talk about it. And probably you can pick out where I stand. But so I'm not a particularly right-wing person. I'm very much down the center. I hate racism. I hate any form of, anything to do with trying to divide people. I believe that people should be together as one. And I think that despite the politics here, when it comes to the silly season, Jamaicans just generally get on. They do. They get on.
That's true.
That's true.
And it's not a bad place. I say it's not a bad place to live at all.
Hold on. I just want to circle back to, neither JLP or PNP reaching out to you for any sort of consultancy role or anything like that. Were you looking for that? Did you expect it?
Neither one nor the other. I didn't expect it, although it wouldn't have surprised me if they said, can you come and help us with a particular project? That wouldn't have surprised me at all. And I probably would have said yes, whether it was one or the other. The fact that it didn't doesn't concern me because I've been so busy doing my own thing. It's fine.
As you say, it suits you. Yeah.
It suits me. Plus the fact I'm still involved. I've had good relationships in terms of police, with every commissioner since I left. I've had a great relationship with DCPs, my successors, particularly Fitz Bailey. I still get many victims of crime or the families of people who have been murdered will come to me and say, look, my son was murdered. I can't see anything happening or I need advice on this. And still, I've got a bit of an open door on that. And so there have been quite a few cases that are either murders or other serious crimes where I've been involved working with families and working as a link with the police. It's one of the things they're not always good at. They're not bad at investigating some of the time, but in terms of dealing with victims of crime, there's still some room for improvement. And it is better than it was, let me tell you, better than 20 years ago, but there's still some way to go in terms of that approach of... Yeah,
because I was going to ask you, like, what do you mean, like, in terms of more empathy? Because most police, like, from what I've been told, is that they try to take a very much take the emotions out of it and just keep it logical to not get so close to the case. But you're saying that, like, even just extending a little empathy goes a long way.
It's developing a system where empathy can be given and support can be given to a family that does two things. One is it supports the family, and secondly, it supports the investigation. And in the United Kingdom, we have a system called FLOs, Family Liaison Officers. And so when somebody has become a victim of crime, and it could be, it could be a multiple rape or it could be a murder, the FLO, that person's job is to be the link to the family. So the family doesn't call the SIO, that's the senior investigating officer. They don't call the investigating officers, they have the FLO. And two things happen then. One is it's a single point of contact for the family to ask, how are things going? What is going on? And equally for the investigators, it's a way in which they can go to the FLO and see, can you find out this from the family? Because sometimes they might know who the suspect is, or it might be something that the family says that the FLO will pick up on and give back to the investigation team. So it's a two-way flow. That is not happening on a regular basis. And in fact, a couple of weeks ago, I was approached by a family, obviously no names, but the male member of that family was killed, shot multiple times. And when I heard about how one or two members of that family were treated without any empathy and just they were really upset by it. But that's a downside. Again, we've got to revert back now and say things are better than they were when I arrived. When I arrived, they were taking black and white photographs of crime scenes. I introduced colour photography. We didn't have proper exhibit bags. There were some of the basic things that you would think they would have, didn't have.
That pissed me off because it's not like we did live in a time where there wasn't colour.
Exactly.
Seriously?
I was in an incident. There was an incident, a particular murder. In fact, Bigger Ford reminded me of this story. I was speaking to him the other week. He said, do you remember the time you threw the photographs across the room? I said, what are you talking about, Bigger? He said to me, it was one of the first murders that you took an interest in terms of when you were there. And you said, can I look at the crime scene photographs? And I got the photographs, looked at them, and I can't.
You can cuss. You can do anything.
Yeah, you can actually.
And I looked at these, and it was like an FFS moment. Do you know what FFS is?
Oh, that again.
For fuck's sake.
It was an FFS moment.
Okay.
And I literally threw the photograph across the room.
And you said,
and they were looking at me saying, what's the matter, Mr. What, Commissioner, what happened? This is the black and white. What's the point of a black and white photograph for a crime scene? You can't see the bruises, you can't see the blood, you can't see the splatter, you can't see this, that, the other. And literally within weeks, I made such a fuss that we got digital cameras. Wow. In 2005. 2005, we got digital cameras.
Seriously, it took you to come and introduce that. Like, I thought that when you come, you're going to carry some special investigative thing. Because I'm assuming that was the reason why they brought you in.
No,
that you were carrying first world measures.
No, we did that. But there were a lot of things that they were far, far, far behind. There was that, and then the other thing I remember was that they didn't have exhibit bags. They had a brown envelope, and then what they did was they used to have wax with a seal, like in those Napoleonic movies. Do you remember? Yeah. And so they'd fold it over, and they get a wax seal, and and that would be the exhibit. But then you need to get the exhibit out, so they break the seal, and then you use paper clips to seal it back up again. And there were two of the things that stand out in my mind. So when people say, so what exactly did you do? It's some of the things are so basic, but they're there now. And now we've got proper videographers for crime scenes, proper photography. Many, many things are happening which didn't happen before. Yeah,
because that was literally a question that I had. Like, what are some of the things that you brought? Because they carried it into... It was a strategy to carry first world measures of police fighting or crime fighting, sorry. So it's like, what are some of the things that you brought that are still there, but you mentioned it? But like in terms of investigation too. Well,
2005, when I arrived, which was the March, murders were going through the roof. And I think we hit nearly 1,700 murders in 2005. And we were going to these meetings that were about, I think they were once every week or something like that. And we sat down and there was a lot of talking, but the meetings were not structured in a way that I was used to, which is you don't talk a lot, you talk little, and then you come back the next week and you would have conducted the actions, but they tend to come back and talk, but there were not many actions. So I said, right, we're not doing that anymore. And when we got going towards 1,600 murders, I thought that can't happen again the following year. And I introduced what they called hotspot meetings, and they still refer to that. I don't know whether they still do them. And not every week, every single day at 5:00, I got a divisional commander, the head of crime, the head of intelligence for every division with a high murder rate into the commissioner's office, into that conference room there. And we'd sit there.
Wait, 5 in the morning?
In the evening, 5 in the evening, okay. 5 in the evening. I think it was 4 or 5 in the afternoon. And we'd say, right, what happened? What are we doing? How are you deploying your people? What investigations are outstanding? What are we doing about this? How are you engaging the community? And it was a very structured thing. And that is a legacy that I'm very proud of, because in the following year, we did have a 20% reduction in murder. That can go onto TikTok. I don't mind that part. So,
was that 2006?
2006. So, but of course, the murder rate has tended to do this. It was 1,600, 1,700 when I got here, and then it dropped, and then it went back up again. But if you look at that graph, we're now at a situation where Dr. Kevin Blake, the current commissioner, he can probably get to the stage where by the end of this year, he might get sub 1,000.
Right.
Now, that is a significant change.
Yeah.
So all this thing about, what did you do to solve the crime problem? It's rubbish. It's all bullshit at the end of the day. It's a question of people progressively working throughout the years to make things better. So I talk, and we can glibly talk about black and white photographs and exhibit bags. That's the beginning. But so many other things have happened since that get us to a stage now where things are better. But they're still pretty shit a lot of the time.
Yeah, it's
They're
safe
not
to
good.
say because,
It's still bad.
despite all of that, critics would say that, despite the lowering numbers, that the crime rate is still unacceptably high.
But so's the accommodation. So's the fact that when you go drive down by Kasafa Peace or some of the other areas and you see these zinc fences and you see the conditions that people live in, where they've got a pipe that is their toilet going into a gully, and where they're tipping their garbage into the gully because there's nowhere else to put it. It's not surprising that people are living in those conditions. It is a fact that if you live in those conditions and you're treated in that way, then things cannot get better. So you have to improve the whole environment. And that's why this rubbish about, commissioners not doing well. There was over 1,000 murders this year, or what did Mark Shields do? It's rubbish. It's about a collective effort in terms of education, economics, employment, enforcement. That's one of the E's, but all of those E's have to work together. And if we can go out tonight and go down towards certain areas, say Kingston Western, and look at some of the conditions, or Kingston Central, where people live, and see how they have to live, it is no surprise that we have gangs and all of the stuff that we have to deal with. But it's getting better. More houses are being built. The education is getting better, even though there's a bleed on the number of teachers. But every single sector you look at, it has to be improved to get a collective lower crime rate.
I've always said that. Like, I don't know why it just did click to me as a kid, where, they would put the expenditure of like how much money that we spend for like crime, and crime was always the majority of it. But very little was spent on education, very little was spent on health, very little was spent on health, social security, social services. And I'm thinking, if we could probably focus more on like the prevention of crime, like, we wouldn't have to spend so much on fighting crime. And
that's where we'll talk about the technology later, but that's where it comes in.
Yeah.
But I want to give you another example, because you asked me what else did we change? What did we do? I remember going down to Hunts Bay police station in that first year. And Hunts Bay at that time had one of the highest murder rates in the country. It was really bad. And you'd meet a detective corporal or a detective sergeant, and I'd say, what's your caseload like at the moment? And he'd say to me, and it was invariably a he at that stage, he'd say, well, I've got 15 murders at the moment, boss. I've got 25 shootings, and I've got this, that, and the other. And I'm looking at this pile of papers, and I'm thinking, how the hell can he solve anything at all? Working by himself, or maybe with one other detective, on 15 murders. In London, if you have one Class A murder, that's a murder where it's a stranger murder. You don't know who did it, blah, blah, blah. You would have a whole team. And so one of the first things I did was to introduce what we call the MITs, major investigation teams. We literally stripped the detectives with great pain and suffering, because people don't like change and they didn't like the idea. But I said, you cannot have a detective sergeant or a detective corporal investigating 15 murders. They have to be categorized. You have to have a team with an FLO, a family liaison officer, with an investigation team, with a technical team looking at the phone data and everything else, with an intelligence team who are working within that community to find out what's going on. You have to have community liaison. These are the aspects that you need to solve a murder. You cannot give an individual 15 murders and say, all right, go on, Detective Sergeant Brown, off you go. Good luck.
And
go and solve these murders.
And it's like a conception where many people feel like the police now do nothing.
Exactly.
But they were overworked.
Exactly.
How much pushback did you get trying to introduce these new things back in the day? Where you say, this isn't how we do it in the UK. Well, they say, this is how we do it. Yes, so like, how much time that would have?
You don't understand
try
that.
to get rid of my job, Mr. Shees. What you mean?
No. The favourite was, you don't understand our culture. I was thinking, where does culture come into policing style? But there we are. But no, this is another TikTok moment. It really is. But so I'm going to be very diplomatic here. I would say that the cops in the JCF when I was there fell into three categories. There were those that were absolutely understood what I was trying to do, and they embraced everything and they worked hard, and we worked to change, and we had some fantastic teams and we solved some really good cases. And since I've left, that has continued. And in fact, I would say DCP Fitz Bailey, in terms of how he was a visible leader until he left in September. He retired. He's gone on to, I think he's working in
Turks and Caicos.
Turks and Caicos,
Yeah.
correct. 2 points for that answer.
Yes.
He's now there. He was a detective superintendent when I started. I worked with him, and I said since I've left, I've kept in touch with him. He is an excellent detective. He has embraced everything. There are others I can mention that embraced everything that we did collectively in terms of case review. That's the thing they didn't do as well. The 15 murders on the Hunts Bay Sergeant's desk, there wasn't a review system. We introduced that, which meant fresh pairs of eyes, fresh people to look at the case and say, well, maybe we can do this. It's not supposed to be critical to catch people out, but it's a critical friend to look at the work and say, well, did you consider this? And it doesn't matter when you have those meetings in a room. You can be the cleaner, the typist, or the detective superintendent. You can come up with an idea that can solve that case and say, sir, did you think about so-and-so? Or could we perhaps consider this? Doesn't matter who it is. And so I introduced this culture of, I don't care what rank you are. I don't care. I want you to work with us as a team to solve this particular murder. And that is where we went. Now we get onto the other group, which is at the far end, didn't want change, resented the fact that I'm here. I was there. I wasn't from Jamaica.
No,
mention the white man thing. Yeah,
I nearly did.
Yeah, it's good.
But it's true.
But
it's true.
Yeah.
I actually experienced what, unfortunately, Jamaicans, Afro-Caribbeans, and Brits have had to experience for their whole lives. I got some of that.
Reverse
but
racism.
I am not trying to even put myself in the same category. So again, TikTok moment, I'm not doing that. That's my new catchphrase, I know.
Definitely prejudice.
And you started the TikTok thing, it wasn't me. But no, there clearly was and it goes back, there was certainly bad mind from some. And I could feel it. I'd stand up in front of, say, 100 and something officers as deputy commissioner. The commissioner was there, the other deputies, and I'd be speaking. And you could just tell from the body language, there were those who embraced and wanted to do it, and those they just thought, oh, well, she should just get on a freaking plane and go back to where he came from. there are exactly. Yeah, I can't do that thing, but that sucking the teeth thing and others.
No, it's kiss your teeth. Kiss your teeth,
hissing. But they never ever changed. And there was a third group. This is an interesting thing as well. They wouldn't embrace what you did at the time, but as soon as you left, they instigated it, and it was their idea, and it was brilliant. So one had to laugh at some of that as well. So there are these various groups, but the biggest group, the critical mass, were those who worked together as a team, and we actually did some really great things.
So that's the thing that you're most proud of, like your mark.
Absolutely.
Leaving your mark of like working together and bringing.
Yeah, absolutely. Bringing people together, making them not so rank conscious. There's just too much yes sir, no sir, 3 bags full sir. And the fact that you didn't have a rank or you were young, it was almost prejudicial, because don't you realise I've been in the job for 25 years and I'm a superintendent and I know better than you. There was that attitude. And I've spoken to young officers as well since, some of whom have left, and said that culture still remains to a degree. Yeah. Because those who are older can feel threatened by those that are articulate, educated, and can actually make a difference. So rather than embracing those people and using them and their energy to promote yourself and the team, they felt threatened by them. And I think that's sad, but that's a fact. Pardon, sir?
Caitlin Clark, she got you right now. I don't know if you know a basketball player.
Female.
The female, Caitlin Clark.
Oh, yeah, I know. Yeah.
She going through that right now.
Is she?
Yeah.
I guess she is to a degree.
Only for bad mind,
Yeah.
No, but the thing I was having a conversation. I remember having a conversation with a friend. We're talking about, is that if crime is going up or down, but is it because the introduction of smartphones, where we record it all the time and blast it out on social media, and that crime was is like it's in your face? No, especially when it was COVID time, like every time stabbing or shooting, would I see it and it's just in your face. But before or during, when you were in the force, it felt like you only get to know about the crime on news, and that's what they want you to, or the crimes that are so like
Heinous.
Yeah,
I think
gruesome,
it works for and
macabre.
against us. When you think about it now, say there's a murder on Knutsford Boulevard, okay, and it's 3:00 in the afternoon, and there's a drive-by shooting. This is a hypothetical, but it could happen. And if I was a cop now, I'd be looking at Jamaica Eye. I'd be looking at CCTV in every single vicinity, every commercial premises on Knutsford Boulevard and the surrounding area. And then I go to the public and say, have you got a dash cam?
Okay.
Because every vehicle that passes, I'd be going through every single dash cam. I'd be looking at, did you turn up with a smartphone and start videoing anything at that scene? And you get all of that information together. And the technology is now available that you do not have to go through it painstakingly hour after hour after hour. There's analysis within AI that can go through that, and that with descriptions of suspects and vehicles, you can bring that together really quickly. So the technology works. Where I absolutely hate it, I'll tell you something. On the 16th of December, 1986, my father was killed in a car crash.
Wow.
In Essex, in the UK. He went round a bend, hit some ice, and the car span across the road, and he was killed instantly by a vehicle that was coming the opposite route. It happened at night on a country road. Very tragic.
Wow.
Then my dad died, and I saw my dad in the mortuary, and I identified my dad, stroked his head, said a prayer, and that was it. Why am I telling this story? The reason is that there was nowhere there with a smartphone to show my father's battered and crushed body that would have been on Instagram and on TikTok and circulated everywhere. And I would have been horrified if that happened to me, and the disrespect that there is attached to that. But now nothing's sacred. And people think nothing of not going up and administering first aid. The first thing is to get their freaking phones out and take a picture of it and circulate it. And I find that so abhorrent. So on the one hand, that smartphone, the technology, is such an advantage to law enforcement and solving crime and crime prevention. But there is another dark side to it that brings out the worst in people.
Right.
And I hate that.
And then we can talk about technology now, and your company, as you mentioned, Shields Crime Security Consultants. Like, you don't just offer security, like armed guards or armed security or actual
Correct.
people securing premises, but you offer technological solutions to crime. So in your experience too, when you compare that, we're just comparing like your time fighting crime, where you were using black and white photos to now you have AI at your disposal. Like, how you think that we can use it to advance crime fighting for us now?
If you think about, I mentioned this in a seminar that I had a few months ago when I was speaking to some sort of captains of industry about technology and what it can do, because people are quite in the dark still about what can be done.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. If you remember, say 10 years ago, you had a Nokia phone or a BlackBerry, and you remember what that phone did. It basically made calls, you could send text messages, and then we got WhatsApp, and that was about it, yeah? If you think of CCTV, most of the cameras that people buy, they're like that BlackBerry. But there are actually Apple phone equivalents to cameras out there now. You understand my analogy?
Yes.
No.
Yes, as in the quality
It's not
of cameras
it's the
now.
quality.
They were BlackBerry.
Oh, okay.
Like it's
Yeah, in terms
BlackBerry,
of-
while there's iPhone quality that we could be using.
Exactly.
that
They're
could be
both
used.
phones.
Yeah.
A BlackBerry, you could send an email, send a text message, make a call, and about 2 or 3 other apps. That is it. But it's a phone. An Apple phone now, you can do all sorts of things. You can record meetings. You've got video capabilities. You can actually edit on it. You can do all this other stuff. Cameras are exactly the same. But we're still buying cameras that are the equivalent to the BlackBerry, when in fact you can buy cameras that, and I will plug it because this is just so, it's like Apple as far as I'm concerned. There's a company called Verkada in the USA. That's VERKADA. So look at verkada.com. It's an integrated security platform. So it's not just cameras, it's access control, it's sensors in terms of the building, it's absolutely everything. But I'll talk about the cameras. The cameras that we sell here at the moment that we use, if you wanted to say, put me up as a person of interest on those cameras, okay? On one of those cameras on that system, every time, and say they were in Kingston, every time I was in Kingston, the police or whoever it would be would get an alert immediately on WhatsApp or on an email. Mark Shields is on Knutsford Boulevard. Let's go back to the Knutsford Boulevard expression. Equally, the murder on Knutsford Boulevard that we mentioned earlier on, this hypothetical murder, the witness says there was a red car and I just saw it had 987 on the license plate. I can actually type in, show me every red car on Knutsford Boulevard with 987 on the plate, and it will give it to me.
And this is the Verkada system.
This is Verkada, and it will give it to me instantly.
Wow.
Instantly. I can say, show me every FedEx vehicle that's passed this road in the last week. There are so many things that we can do. Now, with the greatest respect to Jamaica Eye, it is better than nothing, but it cannot do anywhere near those things at the moment. It can do it in terms of people having to painstakingly go through footage.
Yeah.
So you'd say, well, there was a red car on Knutsford Boulevard, and they will have to go through and look for every red vehicle, and they will find it. But what we can do, we can find it instantly. Not only that once we found it, we can put that plate of interest or that person of interest, and if they turn up on any other camera within Jamaica, wherever we've got cameras, then they'll be spotted.
And this is AI capabilities that Verkada
That is exactly
has.
it.
So because there's
AI
a misconception
capabilities,
that people have with AI, because we're just talking about it, like, you know, like there are limitations to AI, like it's very, like as you said, person of interest, and the article that we saw is like it's not really good with black people or like
That's just
picking
not
up
true,
color.
though. That's not true.
It's not true.
No, in fact, whether it's black people, yellow people, or white people, and even black people, yellow people with a face mask on, we still pick them up. You've got a full face mask because it's not looking at the features of the eyes, the nose, and the mouth. It's looking at the shape of the head. And everybody, believe it or not, has got a different shaped head in the same way we've got different fingerprints. It's the same thing.
Okay.
So if I showed you Verkada, I can pick up people with a mask. But then it doesn't matter, because what would happen is this. You imagine this situation. The guy goes into the liquor store with his red jacket on, and he puts on a full mask, okay? So you haven't got face shape or anything at all. When he leaves the store, what's he going to do?
Take it off.
He's going to take the mask off. So I can put into Verkada, show me every individual with the red top on between this time and that time. And I will get that guy without the mask, because the fact he had the mask on in the store, he's not going to keep it on. He will get out, get into a motor vehicle or whatever, and we will find him. And that is the system that is available.
With AI. Wow. Is it available in Jamaica?
Yes, we
Your
sell
system,
it.
right?
We sell it.
And is it the government has access? And
The government has access to it. And recently a government department, but I won't go into that, has just purchased it because they can see the value of it. There are other government departments that we're talking to say, look, this is what we can do. There was one ministry recently, and they put out an RFP. That's a request for a proposal.
Okay.
And they put these things in the newspaper and say, we want an RFP for CCTV. And I'm looking at this thing, and they go back to the phone. It's like asking, we need a BlackBerry. That's what it was like in terms of the specification that it was asking for. And what happened was that people in IT departments or whatever security department it is had cut and pasted the camera specification that they had 5 years ago. And so they're saying, we want this thing again. Can you apply for it? And I don't even bother, because I'm not prepared to sell to government or private sector something that is pretty crap. And most of the cameras that people are buying, maybe it's disrespectful to say crap, but they're not very good.
A bit of shit, yeah?
They're just pretty shit.
Because you know what funny? When in the movie them talk about enhance, like that's nothing. Like that's stupid, right?
No.
You can't enhance. No.
The cameras that we have, I could put one. I keep using Knutsford Boulevard. Why is Knutsford Boulevard in my head?
It's right
There
up
a
the road.
restaurant there?
If I put one of those cameras at the top end by Trafalgar, and had it going down the road, I could pick up every single face and every single motor vehicle from the top down to the police post. Every single one. With one camera.
Wow. Is it a hard sell?
No, because when I do the presentation, either with my sales manager or with the people from Verkada, every time we do the presentation, people just sit there and say, oh my God, this is fantastic. And we need it. And that's the attitude, because people don't know it's there. So it's not even a hard sell. I'm not a salesman, I'm a cop. But for me, as a cop for all these years, I'm just thinking to myself, this is just so brilliant, because it will save lives, it will solve crimes, it will prevent crimes, because we'll get people off the street that are wanted, because anytime they put their face out there on the street, we're going to catch them.
Right, because I guess is that many people feel like, well, they will never be caught, and I think that's the problem. That was it. The long time, like the people wanted for murder like 15 years or 15 years, and they're able to roam free, and they don't feel, or it doesn't feel as if there's any justice. Do
you know what? I'll tell you what there is with me. This is a very personal statement. Another TikTok moment. There are two parts to me. There's one part, Mark Shields the cop. And there's one Mark Shields, the businessman who has a business and wants to be successful. But with this particular system, they both come together. Yes, I want to be successful, and yes, I want to make money, because everybody wants to make money. That's what we do. That's why we're here to do it. But the bigger part of me in this particular thing is the cop part. That it's not for me, it's not, as I say, it's not a hard sell that I'm trying to sell some rubbish to people to make them spend their money and make me a profit. This is something that I passionately believe and have seen for myself in other countries and jurisdictions, and in Jamaica, because we have it here already. Certain organizations, private sector, have bought it, and we're getting fantastic success with it. So I just want to see it rolled out, because I believe it can make such a difference.
You know, some people, at least there's a feeling amongst a lot of Jamaicans that the police force is corrupt and untrustworthy. Were there some measures that you implemented that combated this perception during your time in the JSF? Did you even care about the perception?
The perception was there. And I remember I went to New York about 6 years ago, and I made a presentation up there, some of which it was TikToked, in that the moment I said about there is a major problem with corruption within the Jamaica Constabulary Force, they were pissed off, and they forgot all the good things I said about the Jamaica Constabulary Force at that time. They focused on that part. And I was getting voice note from cops saying, oh, he could say this, that, and blah, 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 that he doesn't realise what we go through. But there are a couple of things I'd say. One is the organisation is not perfect, and it needs critical friends like me to tell them they're not perfect. But equally, I will big them up all the time when they get it right, as I have done today, talking about some of the investigations they've been involved in long after I left. They have done some fantastic things, but they still have a long way to go. Let's go back to the UK, because they're not perfect.
Right.
3 or 4 years ago, we had an off-duty police officer who abducted a woman walking home by herself in the United Kingdom, and he raped her, murdered her, and dumped her body in Kent. He's got life imprisonment.
Whoa.
We have had other police officers who have been multiple rapists and murderers and involved in corruption. This is not something that is just Jamaican.
No.
It's not. And I actually think when I first came to Jamaica, I spent a lot of time being involved in investigations where police were involved in murder, rape, corruption. That was a lot of my time.
Wow.
I do not get a sense that the same degree of badness is in Jamaica within the JCF as there was. As I said, they are not perfect, but they are so much better than they were 15 years ago.
Wow.
So much better.
Right.
The police in the United Kingdom, we have a lot of work to do, because we slipped due to austerity measures, cutting back on police and all sorts of cutting out training, cutting the pay, recruiting people that were not vetted properly. We created some absolute monsters, which the Met Police in London and other forces are now having to deal with and sort out.
Right.
So when we talk about dirty laundry, there's plenty in the United Kingdom, in the United States as well. But unfortunately in Jamaica, we've had our fair share. But I honestly think we're getting better. We're improving.
How difficult was it then, like, for you to fight the crime with corrupt police officials?
Really
difficult, right? Because they would stymie the investigation in some ways, and I guess, them outsource their their talents, I guess that's it, to criminal elements. Like, how difficult is it to try and rein that in?
Well, that was the importance of having a good team, because it wasn't that most Jamaican cops are good cops, male and female, of every rank. they're good people, and they join the force for the right reasons. And unfortunately, as the same was in London, it's the few that can let you down.
Yeah.
But you surround yourself with good people, and you get led by your local colleagues, because again, as I said, just because I was the DCP, I would listen to people. And if they said to me, look, you need to watch so-and-so, or we need to keep this within this particular group, we did that.
Yeah.
And we worked around it. But any investigation anyway, wherever it is in the world, you don't tell everybody what you're doing.
Right.
You keep it within that unit, the investigative unit, and you tell who you have to tell and disclose what you have to disclose.
That leads me to my next question too, because I mean, before it used to be a perception of police used to be cowboys, in a sense that them going in and kill people. Like, that's why probably Indicom was created. But now it feels as if there is using intelligence
Absolutely.
and like delayed investigation
Absolutely.
and working and bringing people to justice. That
There's no anti-crime unit. There's no CMU, the crime management unit, which is this Renito Adams thing that they had. There's no mobile reserve. One of the things that I tried to implement, but it never happened in my time, but we started the process of disbanding these units and creating proper SWAT teams. And now the man that has pioneered that is Warren Clark, who's an acting DCP, very good cop. I've known him for years. I've known him since I think he was an inspector. And I see Warren Clark regularly in the gym. So we're still in touch. But they now have proper SWAT teams. And there are less fatal shootings. And in fact, those fatal shootings that go to Indicom, a small minority end up with anyone being prosecuted for crime. Because unfortunately here, we have a lot of illegal guns and some very bad criminals who are prepared to take on the police. And if you take on the police, you're going to end up dead probably. But they go through a process, the same as they do in London. But I'll give you, this is an example though, of the difference because of the amount of firearms. I heard the other day that there are 17,000 armed operations in the United Kingdom per year. 17,000, that's pre-planned armed operations.
Yeah.
And of those 17,000 pre-planned firearms operations, how many times do you think firearms were discharged by the police? Any idea?
I couldn't guess.
in England?
Yeah.
No, because the guys don't really have guns like that. No, not no.
Some do.
Yeah.
But the answer is 4
Yeah.
out of 17,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, when you look here,
Why did I have 2 in mind?
yeah,
I had 2 in mind.
well, it could
Double.
be, but it's a low figure. And the reality is that here, you can have pre-planned armed operations here. The people that we now have are well trained, but the criminals will take them on because they have firearms. There are a lot more firearms, and therefore there are a lot more shootings and fatal incidents. You know that in London, for example, and in Manchester and Liverpool, we have a problem with stabbings. Knife crime is a major problem.
Acid, I know it's knife and acid.
Yeah. Knife crime is a major problem, and quite a few people are killed per year, but still nowhere near as many as in Jamaica through knife crime. But the fact is, if you're shot with a 9mm or an M16, you're going to die.
Yeah.
And that's the reality. We don't have that many 9mm and M16s in the UK, thank God, because we banned firearms from the public in the 1980s.
Oh, so private citizen really count? They count?
No, there was a situation in Scotland, which I still remember. It was called Dunblane, which you can Google, Denblane. Dunblane was a mass shooting in a school in Scotland in the 1980s.
Oh, yes.
And as a result of that, they literally said...
Dunblane Massacre.
You got it? Yeah. And as a result of that, they just said no more handguns. Everybody had to hand in their firearms.
So 16 pupils and 1 teacher killed and 15 others injured before killing himself, 43-year-old Thomas Hamilton.
Yep.
So he went to a primary school.
Yep.
Wow. So following the killing, public debate centered on gun control laws, including public petitions for a ban on private ownership of handguns and an official inquiry in which produced the 1996 Cullen Report.
There we are.
So on the topic of gun violence, right? Of course, that's remains a significant problem in Jamaica. What were some of the things that you tried to implement to curb this during your time as
That's a
in the JF.
well.
Yes, yeah.
It's a massive challenge, of course, because we live on an island, and we're only hundreds of miles away from the United States, where they have absolutely millions of guns, and the vast majority of the guns that we find here that have been identified originated as second-hand firearms or third-hand firearms from the United States. Yes, they come from Haiti. Yes, they come from South America, but predominantly they came from the United States, and it's something that has been tackled over that period of time. I know that this government has spent a fortune on building, what's the word? I'm thinking X-rays, not radar. Radar.
Oh, radar. Okay,
radar around the coast to pick up small vessels. The thing that I did that they have continued with is going to Miami, meeting with the ATF or the FBI and all of the other agencies, and working on how can we form partnerships to find the intelligence, because generally speaking, it was Jamaican gangs in New York, in Toronto, or wherever, Philadelphia, that these guys would leave various communities here. They'd go off and do what they're doing in the United States, and then they'd be sending guns back. That's what happens. That's the reality. This affiliation to gangs does not go. When they get on the plane and leave, those affiliations stay. Well, we know that from the whole Dudas thing, the whole network of criminality between Canada, United Kingdom, United States, that ended up Coke eventually getting arrested and charged. That was a network of criminality throughout the whole region. And firearms importation is a major business. And the only way that you can do it is to work in partnership with your international partners in order to try to curb it, share intelligence, tackle the gangs in New York, in Philadelphia, in London, wherever it happens to be, in order that we can dismantle these gangs and prosecute them. That's not just about guns. It's about lottery scam, drug trafficking, because, unfortunately, Jamaica remains a major cocaine transit point from South America. Was that house in Havendale a few weeks ago? Yeah. Where there literally was about a ton of cocaine. Unbelievable.
And the coke, the plane were crashed with the coke.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, let's not pretend it isn't going on. It's a major problem. So where you've got guns, illegal guns, you've got cocaine trafficking, you've got scamming, and now cybercrime, which I'm sure is something that you guys will want to talk about as well.
Right, because
we have
cybercrime.
It's a den of iniquity. Most Jamaicans are good, hardworking people, but there is a hardcore that will focus on those crimes. And we're at a stage until the United States decides to change its gun laws, which is highly unlikely.
Because the NRA.
Because of the NRA, because of, is it the Constitution? Is it?
Yes, the Second Amendment,
The Second Amendment, is it?
The right to bear arms, Second Amendment.
That is not going to change.
No, it's actually a political point.
Exactly. Yeah. And then here we've got 45,000 licensed firearm holders, plus the army, plus the police. And unfortunately, some of them lose their firearms from time to time or get killed for them as well. People say to me, it's a different subject, but I'll just anecdote. People say to me, Mark, do you think I should get a firearm? I'm thinking about getting a firearm. And I say to them, well, it's a matter for you, because if you get one, people will leave you alone if you haven't got one. And there may be a robbery, and unless you're using it regularly, you could end up dead anyway, because you may miss or whatever, unless you train regular. I said the downside is of having one, when people know you have one, they will come for you and they will kill you to take your firearm.
Yes.
Wow.
So if you haven't got a firearm, they won't come to kill you for the firearm because you haven't got one in the first place. So there are many other tactics that I would use as opposed to having a firearm for people in general.
That's why it's encouraged.
In high risk position.
Yeah, that's why it's encouraged not to brandish it if you don't plan to use it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's like,
we don't do that. Remember, we don't do that.
You mentioned cybercrime. You think it surpassed murders and shooting, like in terms of our crime rate and things like that? Like I remember talking to Mr. Dennis Brooks, and he was saying that major organized crime is is a main reason for crime in this country, and it's linked to lottery scamming most times. And even the beryllium thing was linked to the gangs in the prison, and they trace it back to gangs in the prison. So you think like even cybercrime, like how can we combat that? Like, is there any way that we could combat?
Well, cybercrime knows no international boundaries at all.
You're right.
Because cybercrime, it could be that if a bank, NCB, First Caribbean, whichever one it is, or if it's Grace Kennedy, KFC, when they get attacked, they could be attacked by cyber criminals operating in Russia, in North Korea, in London, China, wherever it happens to be. You don't have to be local in order to do that. So it means that whether you've got an extremely large business, medium or a small business, you need to protect yourselves from cybercrime. And that means having up-to-date software that protects your computer or your network system. And it can be done. Changing passwords regularly. Using second and third tier verification. You know what that is, do you? Yeah. So all of that helps, but we can protect ourselves. But the thing is, like any other crime, you get lazy. Leaving your car open with the laptop in the back of the car is the same as not changing your password regularly because...
you just hit a sore spot for me.
Yeah, but it's the truth. We get lazy.
Yeah.
You know, my password, ABC123 on everything from your bank to your Google account. It's not going to work anymore. You have to make it difficult for the criminals.
Yeah.
In the same way you do not leave things in your car or walk around with a big Rolex, if you can afford it, of course, which I can't, as you can see. Just checking that I don't have a Rolex. So, you've got to look after yourself. That's the first line of defense, is to look after yourself, look after your business, look after your home life, your family. Yeah. When you're in a car, look after yourself. And when you've got your laptop, look after that as well, because it is dangerous. Whichever way you look at it, people are going to come and try and take your stuff.
Yeah.
You have to ask, what do you think about the rise of the chopping culture in general in Jamaica?
Scamming,
The what culture?
Chopping. You know about the chopping?
Lottery scamming.
Yeah.
Oh, the scamming.
Yeah, the choppings.
That's been around since I've been here. We've had success with it. Again, when you turn up, if you get off a plane in Miami, you've got US Customs waiting there with their dogs, their sniffer dogs, and they're sniffing for money because of the scamming, going in both directions as well. Money coming down and money going back up. It's a major problem, scamming. It is millions and millions and millions of US dollars. And it is not, as some like to think, some victimless crime where, these rich Americans, it doesn't matter. These people lose everything. Have you seen that film?
No.
What's that film called? The Beekeeper. Have you seen Beekeeper?
Yes.
I love that movie.
Yes, with Jason Statham. Yes. Yeah, she killed herself.
Oh God, made it feel for the man. Yeah.
Feel for Cleary.
But that woman who, I won't spoil it for those who've not seen the film, but at the beginning of the film, the woman is scammed and she loses absolutely everything. And she's so upset that she takes her own life. And that's not unusual that people do that.
Yeah.
I had another case here. I've been helping a family for several years where the wife in this particular family was scammed by a well-known scammer who persuaded her to give millions of dollars to him that he could pay back, and he had a family that was going to pay back, and the money was in a trust, this, that and the other. And there's this befriending thing as well. It isn't always lottery scam, but there are many other scams, and people are drawn in because these people appear to be so genuine, and they prey on vulnerable people and they break them. And they bleed them dry. And even other members of the family can say, Mummy, it's not real. He doesn't really love you. He's not really your friend, or whatever the scenario is.
Yeah.
But these people believe it. And the more they give, the more they don't want to believe it's a scam because they've already given so many millions away. And then when they get to the point and they find out that they've been scammed, they literally break down, mentally break down. It's terrible crime.
And you mentioned that many people don't believe that it is a victimless crime. They just think that, they just swindle the money, but there's nobody to it. But even we say where it's connected to the major crime, like major organized crime, like, is there any way that with the AI that you talk about, Verkada, is that we can utilize it to clamp down on it?
That works both ways, because you could take my voice now from this YouTube thing, and then you could manufacture my voice and phone my wife and say, oh darling, I've just lost some money and I'm stuck. Could you send me some money to this number? I've lost my phone as well. And Emily could be at home thinking, that's my husband, and could send the money. She wouldn't, because he's Emily Shields. But you understand the principle.
She asks a bag of questions
Miss
first.
Great investigative journalist.
Can you imagine? And even if it happened to us, I would never admit it. But no, I'm telling you, all joking apart, that's how AI can work against
Yes,
us. It can be used as a tool for crime, but equally it can be used as a tool for good in all the ways that I've described as well. So it's a double-edged sword.
So it can be used to combat.
It can be used to combat crime by profiling, by looking at phone numbers. In fact, if you look at it now, particularly when I'm in the US, I've got a US phone number, and I would say 75% of the calls I get on that number, it says scam likely, scam likely, scam likely. So I don't answer any of those calls. And even now in Jamaica, on my Digicel phone, I'm picking up these calls that are saying scam likely or potential scam. And the reason that's happening isn't somebody sitting there thinking, that's a dodgy number, that's AI. That's working through algorithms and working out at numbers and saying, well, why is that number calling my number? And looking at that number and saying, well, it's calling all these other random people, and therefore there is a good possibility that this is a scam. So technology works both for and against us.
Yeah.
But I could not have you here and not ask about Serpy. This is really for TikTok now. You've listened to some of his videos, I assume. Serpy, Politricks Watch. The YouTube channel.
Oh.
You don't know about Serpy. You've never heard of it.
No.
Wow.
Is that bad?
In a way. Because you'd like to think that somebody with your history would be, at least be aware of him.
No, I have to pull it up.
The thing is,
no about Serpy, Politricks Watch.
is
No.
it something, what is it? Tell me what it is.
It's a popular YouTube channel where somebody with an obviously disguised voice is speaking on crime in Jamaica.
I know this. This is rubbish.
Wow.
It's rubbish. I've heard him. Yeah. I've seen
What
it.
about it is rubbish?
Well, a lot of it is rubbish.
Oh, okay.
And, you know, I think I've been on it as well in a not in a very positive manner. But let's face it, there are people out there who are going to exploit the public. And it's unfortunate that people believe everything they see or hear on YouTube. And I say to everybody out there, do not believe everything on social media. Most of it is complete bollocks. Check your sources. Go to CNN, the BBC, the Times, the New York Times, or whatever, and check what you're hearing, because most of the stuff is complete bollocks. That's simple as that.
Yeah, there was a video.
That's a very British
Mark
word,
Shields
by the way.
believe Renita Adams was trying to get him dash way.
Yeah, you know, this goes on, and you can sit there and scroll and scroll and scroll, and you have to be careful because some of it is AI generated as well. But I've listened to that guy, and he's talking about conspiracies and that there is this happening, and I'm waiting for the evidence. But it's not. It's just blah, 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 sensationalize this, sensationalize that. It's rubbish as far as I'm concerned.
And I'm glad that you brought it, mention it too.
So I do know it now.
Yeah.
I understand you triggered my memory, and clearly I do know, but it means so little to me.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's sad that people out there actually listen to that and believe it.
Right. So how
Because
can
most of it's
we?
rubbish.
So you have intelligence, and I always say police have more intelligence than the average individual, average private citizen. Like how you, but with YouTube and the AI with misinformation and disinformation, like how can we really and truly whittle out what's true and what's not true? Because most people think that him have some intel and connection.
Just act like a journalist or a detective. Check the sources. It's as simple as that. Do not just take for granted everything that you see and say, oh, well, that must be true. It's on YouTube or TikTok, because most of it is just complete rubbish. It's as simple as that. And there are so many independent news sources that you can check before you can form opinion. And I think that also goes down to, do not necessarily retweet, as I would call it, or re-TikTok, if you can say that.
Repost.
Yeah, repost, exactly. Do not repost unless you check it, because...
But most people don't do that though. And then they said check the sources, like if they assume that, well, if it's on TikTok or, he's saying it, like the source must be some confidential source. So, even if it's not on Observer or Gleaner, he's well connected to JCF or the JDF.
Is he?
Well,
and if he is, then, I don't want to spend too long on this particular person.
Yeah.
But even if he is, how do you know that he is not just dealing with disgruntled cops who want to cause issues? We do not know that. does it actually solve any crimes? Has he got any statistics to say, well, because of his channel, so many crimes have been solved, so many scammers have been caught? No. Is that the case? Has that ever happened?
No.
I'm not quite sure. Something the Patreon squad, I forgot. Let's sort out that.
But what I can tell you is this, that when I left the Jamaica Constabulary Force, they had virtually no platform for Twitter, TikTok, Instagram or anything. You look at them now, they are brilliant. Please put this piece on TikTok. Jamaica Constabulary Force are absolutely brilliant when it comes to social media and using it for the right reasons to show the good cops, the good work that they do, the wanted person on Wednesdays, etc. All of that is excellent stuff. And I'd go for those sources and I prefer those. And looking at some of the brave men and women in the Jamaica Constabulary Force and you see what they're doing. Yeah, they pick up on the odd bad thing. You've got somebody with a phone taking a snapshot of a particular moment where it looks really bad for the cops. And sometimes it is. But I have to commend the JCF for their use of social media.
Let me ask you this though. Did you and Renita Adams actually get along?
No.
Yeah.
Well, what do you think? I got him charged with murder. Do you think I'm the most popular person? I don't. Do you think I get invited round for lunch? No.
Still up to this day?
Of course not. I have nothing to do with him. I don't even think of him. That's a part of my life that was long, long, long ago. And this putting him up against me and all that rubbish, well, again, that was media stuff and everything else. It probably been 20 times worse if there was social media then.
Yeah.
Whereas all we got was the odd Observer cartoon, a few of which I've got in my office, which are excellent. They're really
Clovis,
funny. Clovis, going back to those days. It was excellent, but they were not good times for the JCF.
No, they weren't.
People like him, let's not mention him by name, but people like that were not good ambassadors for the JCF.
But you think there's definitely a whole PR reform for them now,
Absolutely.
like where it's more trust.
But I know people would disagree with that statement that he wasn't good for the JCF.
Because many people think that, when you have a healthy fear of cops versus they don't have the fear for them anymore, you know.
I would suggest that you speak to acting DCP Warren Clark and talk about the measures that he has in place, the SWAT teams that he has that are professionally trained, that are targeting criminals, doing proper hard stops on motor vehicles, using the intelligence that is there now in the technology to take out criminals. The criminals have more fear now for what's going on than they did 15 to 20 years ago. And what happened 15 to 20 years ago, again, without going to any particular individual, many innocent people ended up getting killed. Look at the statistics now and where we are. A lot less innocent people are getting killed and a lot more members of the public are prepared to have their trust and confidence in the police today working with the community than they did 20 years ago. And I could debate that particular point all night. I know where I would rather be. I know the sort of people that I want on the streets that are highly trained in the use of firearms, in the reasonable use of force, that know about intelligence, that have smartphones and other gadgets and less than lethal options as well. That's where I want the police to be. I don't want a police force. I want a police service. I want people, men and women who work with the community. That's what I want.
Javier Adams was one of them where did Isim teeth at him too. One more question, one last question. So looking back, if you had the opportunity to change one decision that you made during the time in the JCF, what it would be and why?
I don't know about a decision's a difficult thing because you make so many, literally thousands, tens of thousands of decisions throughout the whole period of time. I think my regret is, I do have a regret and a frustration that everything that I wanted to change, to transform the Jamaica Constabulary Force has taken far longer than I would have wanted. So I'm frustrated by that because I can produce, say, a 2008 strategic crime plan and I can go through it if I had it today. And I won't go through it because it's boring and I'm talking about myself too much. And I just think I wish these things that I wanted in 2007, 8, 9 had implemented sooner. And they have not been, or they now have been. And that, I would say, that is my biggest frustration, in that decisions that I would like to have been implemented at that time were not implemented. Why was that? Well, part of the reason, I think, was also finances. I think that the country's in a far stronger position than it was 15 years ago. You know, I think some economists would be saying we were on a precipice of bankruptcy. Literally, we owed so much money to the IMF. Debt to
15
GDP.
years ago.
Yeah, 15 years ago. Debt to GDP was just ridiculous.
Right?
And so I might have wanted all of these fancy gadgets and technology, but there wasn't the money available. Excuse me. So I think that's a regret or a frustration.
Yeah.
But what I'm seeing is that people such as Kevin Blake, Warren Clark, Fitz Bailey until recently, and many others that I could mention, they've done a fantastic job of continuing the process of modernization and transformation. It is never, ever down. I've said this at the beginning of the interview, I'll say it again. It's never down to one individual or one thing. It isn't about a Renito Adams or a particular commissioner or a Mark Shields. It's down to an ongoing process of transformation into a modern police force. And that's what it's really about. And then lastly, all those other E's I mentioned: education, economics, employment, the environment that we live in, and enforcement as well. All of those E's are so important. You cannot just say one is all important. They have to work together in partnership. And if you do that, if you improve the lives and the well-being of people and strip away the zinc fence and build proper houses and have a proper environment with proper toilets and proper garbage facilities and, you know, treat people with dignity, things will get better.
I think we can, on that note, Sir Mark Shield, give thanks for passing through. All more could ask.
I mean,
it's gonna be a proper podcast, you know. But yeah, we give thanks. Thank you, sir, for passing through. It really
please
was
plug
nice
your company
Yes,
and where they can access the resources.
Can I do that?
Yeah, man,
Yes,
go ahead.
please.
I guess it's not the BBC, is it? So yeah, my company's called Shields Crime and Security, and you'll find us at shieldscsc.com, and we provide a whole array of security services around the country. But we particularly want to come with you technology. We can give you guards, and we've got very good guards. But for me, the most important thing isn't having someone raising a barrier at a car park. It's using the technology in order to save you money in the long term. So invest in technology, and then you can reduce your number of guards, and then train those people in order to react to anything that the cameras pick up. It's really important that we use both together.
I'm guessing that you kind of carry out part of your police life through the
This
security
new
code. Yeah.
venture, right?
Yeah, I think I do.
Because that was my question too. Is like,
If
have you
you
ever
suffer-
given up being a cop?
No,
Like,
even if you suffer withdrawal, in a sense.
No, I think not. But you see, the thing is, you leave the police. I made a decision. I'm not going to become the chief security officer for NCB, for example. That was not me. I've always
Tough job right now.
I've always wanted to be. No, I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I've always wanted to have my own business and to, you know, either sink or swim doing that. And I have so much pride in terms of what I do. Actually, being able to pay other people to do a job and see their families grow and all of that stuff. It might sound a bit fluffy, but I love that. But if I'd left and said, well, I'm going to open a restaurant, or, you know, I'm going to go and open, what could I do? A laundrette, or I'm going to bake cakes.
Laundrette.
It's just not me, one. And two, I probably would have failed because I've got no experience of being a baker or working laundrettes or whatever. So I did something where I thought I can bring my experience and to a degree my reputation to this particular business, and hopefully it's going to go somewhere.
leverage it.
So
And
that's
you've
what I
seen,
did.
and I mean, you started in 2004, this year.
2009 in terms of the company.
Yeah, the company.
So this is my 15th anniversary.
Wow.
I think actually, talking about regrets since then, I think marketing has been something that we've lacked. I think we could do better.
I think so too.
Because
Yeah.
it could be, although my name is Mark Shields and people think, oh, former DCP and all of that, they don't all know I've got a security company. So hopefully this will help.
Hopefully. Hopefully. Give thanks again, Sen. The missus our love. We're big fans here.
Yes.
It would be nice if you could help us get her up here finally.
I'll try and persuade her to come here.
Give thanks so. Well, you want to tell people where you're on social media?
Pardon?
Personal, you want to tell people where you're at on social media?
Yeah, if you want to catch me on social media, it's Mark Shields. It's MARX Shields, SHIELDS. Mark Shields. I've used Mark Shields for years, even like with Gmail and everything, because Mark Shields was already taken, MARK SHIELDS. So I've used this MARX SHIELDS, and I'm on Twitter, which is now called X.
Stupid.
I hate X.
We feel the same. We feel the same.
Yeah. I know. And who says, oh, have you X to that? Everyone says, you still say, did you tweet it?
Retweet. Yeah.
Stupid.
Tweet and retweet. And Instagram. And that's about it, really. So that's what I'm on.
Okay.
And my company things are out there as well. If you get one, you'll get the other.
Okay.
Okay?
People, it's Mark Shields. It's the fix of weed at the know.